This video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Stay tuned till the end of the video to find out how you can get access to a top tier and reliable VPN for your online safety.
The threat of the Transformers will only be eliminated once they are destroyed. We can no longer stand by.
People of Earth, we can stay hidden no more. You all are in grave danger. I have sworn to protect this planet and its people. We will not idly watch as you face extinction. People of Earth.
Hey guys, the Firebird is here. It's just me. My brother couldn't be here today because he went to Hasbro HQ to steal new legacy reveals. Prime vs. Prime Star. Anyways, these are the jokes. I hope you guys are enjoying them. So, Transformers Age of Extinction is arguably one of the more divisive Michael Bay movies. Anything after Dark of the Moon is pretty divisive amongst movie fans. Like, people really seem to generally not like the continuations of Dark of the Moon, and I'm one of them. While I do like some aspects of them, like the Dinobots, I think they were pretty cool, and the soundtrack, which was also stellar. But what I can give credit to Age of Extinction is that it had one of the best marketing campaigns out of any movie. In this video, I'm going to talk about the Age of Extinction Transformers Are Dangerous marketing campaign. I know this is very different to what I usually cover. I usually just cover theories and stuff. And the reason why I'm covering this is because not a lot of people have talked about this. Well, not a lot of people in the English side of this, community. In the Spanish side, again, what's with the Spanish side, like covering this stuff first before we ever get a chance to do it? They had talked about this quite a bit. Now, this marketing campaign was basically a website where you could go called Transformers Are Dangerous, and unfortunately, it's unavailable at the moment. You can't really access it because it's been a long time. The domain's done, they're not using the website anymore, but it's still possible to go there using the Wayback Machine, which is what I did. But unfortunately for me, I don't know if there's a problem with my PC, or maybe the Wayback Machine doesn't work anymore for this website. But whenever I try to enter, it just doesn't work. So I had to go around the web gathering screenshots and other stuff that's from the website. So don't worry too much about it, we're still good. Now, what's interesting about this campaign is that it basically tells what happens straight after Dark of the Moon, when the Autobots and humanity start, antagonizing one another, where they start separating, alliances start breaking, humanity starts fearing all Transformers in general, and we also get the reveal and appearances of many Autobots that we never got to see in the movies. Well, Autobots and a few Decepticons, in the form of newspapers, actual phone calls, some, quote-unquote news reports that basically tell the story of everything that happened before Age of Extinction leading up to it. Transformers sightings all around the globe, that's what we're gonna be covering. And also, I do recommend that you watch my Why Bumblebee Got Left Foot Killed video, because that theory, I think it gets reinforced by this. I think there's more validity to that theory being true. So if you're curious about that theory, or you haven't watched it yet or are curious about it, you can pause this video, go check it out. I'm gonna put an annotation in the screen right now so you guys can go and watch it, but it's not exactly necessary. But before we go on, I want to give a shout out to the fan art of the day by Pardo Sex Shot, who made this, well, movie sex shot, his version of how a movie sex shot will look like. And I gotta say, it looks pretty cool. You added a lot of detail to this guy. I mean, he does look pretty different from the G2 sex shot, but I don't mind. Like, the movies reinvent characters and make them look really different all the time. So this is nothing new, and it's just par for the course. Kinda looks like Whirl when I think about it. Good job, Sex Shot. Keep up the great work. And if you guys want to receive a shout out, or have your art featured in one of my videos, follow me on Discord and submit your art in the art section. But anyways, let's jump right into it. So the way this works is that we got this global map. The red dots are sightings, places where Transformers have been spotted. Audio, it's basically what it says. It's just people calling in to report Transformers activity. And the aftermath is just, places, that had previous Transformers activity or reported and such. As you can see, there's a lot of dots across the globe. Most of them are in America, because that's where Optimus Prime and his crew are. There's some around Europe and very few around Australia and South America. Interestingly enough, none around Africa or Asia. Kinda interesting. So our first aftermath comes straight from Japan. In this Japanese newspaper, which I Google translated, it basically tells us that people in Japan are kind of afraid of, flying in airplanes, because there has been some Decepticon activity reported of Decepticons, hiding as planes, and Decepticons are famously known for being more aerial than the Autobots. Well, at least in theory, the movies didn't do a good job showing that. So people are naturally afraid of just, taking an airplane and just going anywhere. Now, this is usually how Japanese airplanes look like. Pretty average, kind of your standard run-of-the-mill airplane. And we know that these are supposed to be Decepticons. The only candidates I can kind of picture as, taking part of, the whole underground hiding amongst the planes Japanese Decepticon group will probably be Octane. I don't know why. I feel like he's the type that will transform into this type of airplane. After all, the dude is known for transforming into your typical, jetline airplane. So I think he's a perfect fit for being one of these, Decepticons hiding in Japan. I was initially thinking that maybe some of the Seekers could also be hiding in Japan, but the Seekers usually are military planes, so I think Octane is one of the Decepticons that's hiding here. We're not exactly sure how many Decepticons were hiding as planes. My guess is that it will only be like probably 2 or 3. But if you guys have any ideas as to who they could be sure to give me your best guess in the comments down below. Alright, so now we move on to Sydney, where we get this, news report magazine that comes straight from the highest level of power, the South Australian government. So I'm just gonna quickly read what it says. In a show of solidarity with their fallen allies in Chicago, USA members of parliament spoke out against the sudden incursion of Transformers on Earth. We may not see them, we may not hear them, but we must fear them, declared the Speaker of the lower house. The Transformers fooled us once, but they will fear us soon enough. Although the meeting was largely symbolic in nature, it does portend major policy shifts to come. Anti-Transformers legislation is currently being drafted to criminalize the harboring of any suspected enemy combatant, regardless of their prior affiliation. Autobot versus Decepticons. We stand with Chicago, continued the speaker. Today, all humanity stands together. I still do find it kind of interesting how, they just said, if they're Autobots or Decepticons, doesn't matter, we should get rid of all of them, even though it was the Autobots who kind of saved the day in Dark of the Moon. So you'll figure that they will be like, hey, these guys are good, everyone else is bad. But then again, this is humanity we're talking about. They're not exactly known for making reasonable and well thought out decisions. Next up, a little south of Sydney, we have another sighting in Melbourne. This comes as part of a news article. Unfriendly skies. Transformers circle Eureka Tower. The above photo made its way through social media like wildfire in the past 24 hours, but there's nothing social about the menacing machine featured in the pic. The aeronautic assailant swooped down on Eureka Tower with intent to harass, an unexpected occurrence seeing as how the Transformers have been in exile for the better part of 3 years, and Melbourne residents wish they will go back into hiding. Then it goes on to say that the Cybertronians have been declared intergalactic enemy number 1. Despite some naysayers who claim that the Autobots are still our allies, public policy remains resolute. All Transformers must be banished from our planet. The previous article we covered is just like, the Australian government debating whether or not, should the Autobots and the Decepticons be considered public enemy number 1, should they be, exiled from Earth. And this article just straight up says that it has been 3 years since these guys have been exiled. Now, as for the character in the picture itself, this is using the Laserbeak model, so this is actually more of a beast type transformer. At the beginning I was thinking it could probably be Skylynx. Maybe he just decided to, go on top of a tower just for whatever reason, because I mean, the article doesn't mention casualties or anything. Maybe it could have been just Skylynx, just arriving on Earth, being confused and just, staying on top of a tower, and the humans being none the wiser thought he was just terrorizing the neighborhood, when that was never his intent. But I think it's probably more likely than not a Decepticon. Now, as for which one it is, that's very, very hard to tell because of the quality of the picture. It's a bird-like Decepticon, so anyone who transforms into a bird kinda counts, and it's big. This is a big boy because you can see him from a distance. Like, that's a massive wingspan. And keep in mind, they use the word swoop. You typically use that for, birds, flying animals, not exactly, big machine stuff like jets. But if I were a betting man, I think this is Double Dealer. Double Dealer in his turkey bird mode thing. Because, I mean, that's the only one I can picture transforming into a giant bird. And, you know, making sense. And a movie Double Dealer will be quite big since he also transforms into essentially what Debcon transformed into. So by default, his royal mode should be big, like very big. And he should have enough mass to transform into a giant bird too, as his, you know, ordinary third mode. It's just food for thought, but if you guys have any other suggestions, I'm all ears. Our next sighting is in London, where we get this report that Big Ben was quote-unquote dwarfed by a would-be assailant. Passerbys were shocked at the sight of an alien combatant perched near the Palace of Westminster in the early hours of morning today. Both houses of parliament were immediately evacuated in light of the incident, but the transformer disappeared as soon as it had arrived. MI5 security services are currently sifting through this mountain of photographic evidence to decipher clues to the machine's next possible destination. In the meantime, Londoners are on the lookout for another Transformers invasion. So yeah, we see a Transformers hiding behind, you know, the Big Ben tower, and this is actually quite a big Transformer. I mean, we can scale this guy right next to the tower, and this guy's about 4 floors tall. So he's actually quite big. He's actually probably a little bit bigger than Optimus Prime himself. My guess is that this is an Autobot because he's hiding and not looking for any kind of confrontation. And the Decepticon wouldn't care and just start wrecking the place. And Autobot will probably be more careful and not wanting to pick a fight. You can see a hint of green in him. It's very hard to tell more than that because we can only see like what's supposed to be the arm and whatever this part over here is. My guess is that this is a flying Autobot, you know, an aerial bot. I don't know which one. Could be anyone, could be Springer, could be Air Raid, could be Breakaway, could be a lot of characters really, but I'm leaning to this one probably being an aerial bot just because of the size, because this guy's not gonna be a small car or a truck. If it was a truck, it would be way smaller. To me, it looks like this guy would be around Starscream size if he didn't have the chicken legs. So yeah, I'm gonna have to say Autobot, and as for his identity, it's unknown. Now we have our first piece of audio that also comes straight from London. I'm gonna play it and then we're gonna analyze it.
Yeah, hi, I've just seen a Transformer. I'm actually in London, it's coming down Oxford Street. I'm not sure what to do.
I don't think this is connected to the previous Autobot we talked about, because the distance between these two marks is quite apart. But if I were a betting man, I'll say that this is probably connected to, you know, the little Autobot retirement home that we see in The Last Night. We know that there's a lot of Autobots hiding there like Hot Rod, Bulldog, Lieutenant, and a few others. So I could realistically see a lot of them, you know, just going around London and maybe, you know, getting caught every once in a while. Especially Hot Rod, since we know how he is. Speaking of which, despite the Transformers being robots in disguise, they get spotted out in the wild quite easily. Trust me, you ain't seen nothing yet, son. The Autobots and Decepticons did a horrible job staying hidden, but there was a way all of this could have been avoided. That's right, folks, I'm talking about the one and only way to keep your internet privacy safe, surf around the web, and stay far away from any unsavory individuals. ExpressVPN. Have you ever browsed Netflix, Crunchyroll, or any of the other thousands of streaming sites nowadays, only to find shock horror? Your favorite show has been region locked. However, never fear, because ExpressVPN is here. You can change your location to anywhere else in the world and access the content you need. Boom! Just like that, super fast, no buffering, 24/7 customer support, quite simple. But wait, there's more. ExpressVPN helps keep my data protected at all times. It can even be used on multiple devices to make sure that you and your entire family are always protected. Now I can browse the internet for pictures of my waifu without the government even knowing. Are you filming out there? You can get 3 months of ExpressVPN for free by visiting the ExpressVPN website --the Fire Brothers VPN. Link to it in the description down below. Now you can watch those region block shows on your favorite streaming site and surf around the web safer today. Thanks, ExpressVPN. And now, back to the video. Now we move on to Paris. Now this is in French, but luckily for you guys, I actually speak French and I'm able to understand what this says. The Eiffel Tower still stands after an alien robot attack. Since its early construction, the Eiffel Tower has been visited by around 250 million people. But the arrival of an unwanted guest would change everything. A giant transformer descended from the Mars fields before transforming into his vehicle and passing the Eiffel Tower at great speeds. The ground was shaking, said a witness. It was like an earthquake in the tower. They tried to calm down everyone that was around the location. The local communities came together, organizing a group known as Reprenonce la Tour, which translates to Take Back the Tower. Creative name. Their mission is to defend Paris against any other machines and respect the rights of the human race. So basically another, anti-Transformers, article. And what's interesting enough is that in this particular Autobot or the Decepticon, it's very hard to tell because this guy didn't exactly cause mayhem. He shook the tower and spooked a lot of people, but he didn't blow up the place or start exterminating humans. He just showed up, looked at the tower and left. And they also mentioned that this guy is huge. Lots of huge Transformers here. And as you can see by this picture, I know the perspective makes it hard to compare. This guy is actually quite a big Transformer. Unfortunately, we don't have anything to go by in terms of the vehicle mode. All that we know is that this guy is huge and he shakes the ground when he moves, but that's nothing new. Transformers shake the ground all the time when they move. But considering that they keep emphasizing the size, my guess is that this guy will be a big Transformer. Think of it like maybe around Megatron, Optimus, Shockwave, or maybe even Ironhide size. I'm leaning more towards this being an Autobot instead of a Decepticon just because he didn't really harm anyone. But I'm not sure. Okay, our next sighting comes from Barcelona, where we get this article which, to summarize, a group of teenagers, they basically decorated their car to resemble Optimus Prime, and then they just went in a merry joyride around the neighborhood and some Barcelona landmarks like La Sagrada Familia, scaring tourists. Hundreds of people ran around the streets in fear of the alien murder machine. Unfortunately for them, the prank was discovered when the papier-mâché head that was covering the top of the vehicle flew off, letting everyone know that the Transformers wasn't actually a Transformer. The teenagers were then promptly arrested and taken to a reformatory, which that seems a bit excessive because teenagers are known for doing stupid stuff. Trust me, I live here in America. People here eat Tide Pods for fun. But interestingly enough, apparently this is something that happens quite often in Europe, where people are trying to create their own Transformers to prank people. Apparently shortly after this, another group of teenagers was trying to build a replica of Bumblebee to just, cruise around the streets and scare people. However, their attempt was foiled by local authorities when they found out about this.
I'm joking! Stop! 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 Stop the brake! Stop! Stop! Stop!
So our next article comes straight from Madrid. They didn't care that anyone spotted them. There was no single form of respect for the Spain monarchy. Even after the police exchanged warning shots and shot smoke bombs, they refused to leave after much time has passed. The Transformers won't leave like that. If we can't even feel safe in our own royal palace, where will we feel safe? This was an urgent question provided by the royal family, which postponed indefinitely their imminent state dinner. While the robot menace will not disappear, the royal palace will remain closed. To satiate the fear of the royal families, the city authorities have tried to build new barricades that surround the entire palace. The cost of said barricade keeps being an unknown, and it's not made clear if they will be capable of stopping a new intrusion. The mayor of Madrid has stated his opposition to this plan. He says, quote unquote, "We build one wall, and then what? We build another one, and another one, until our city is nothing more but concrete and fear." I'm opposed to this. We will not play into intimidation. Not now, not ever. Now this one's very interesting, and it's also one in which I can't say for certain if these are Autobots or Decepticons. And the reason why I say this is because while the Transformers, sure, they basically, showed up uninvited, scared the royal family, they haven't exactly shot anyone. Like the police and them are like at the stalemate, confronting one another. If these were the Decepticons, they would just kidnap the royal family, F the police, and ditch, My guess is that they could also be Autobots. Maybe, they're questioning why they're being hunted down, why the humans are treating them like such. So they went to, the royal family, a group with power, world leaders, so they can directly talk to them. Like, that's how I could justify this being Autobots. It could also be Decepticons who maybe, just want to create some chaos and mayhem. But their actions are kind of weird. They basically seized the royal palace, but they're not shooting anyone. They could be Autobots, they could be Decepticons. I'm kind of leaning more towards them being Decepticons, but their actions are very weird. Now we do see an image of our, would-be Transformer. He has a tint of green, and it's very blurry. He has a weapon now. So, again, probably a Decepticon. Don't know which one. This image doesn't tell us much. But from what I'm seeing here and from the perspective, this guy has to be a small one. Like, he has to be around maybe the size of Bumblebee or, a car transformer. I don't see him being anything taller. And as for the other Transformers, we don't know how many or much less who they are. Now we got an aftermath in Brazil.
Not letting go. Nothing will stop me. Not even.
To be perfectly honest, this paper is not exactly worth reading, because unlike the other ones, there's nothing too interesting here. All that this is telling us is that there has been a boom in recruitment in Brazil, where people, wanting to defend their world from the would-be alien invaders are, standing in droves to defend the country from any Autobots or Decepticons that might show up. Interestingly enough, Chicago gets brought up a lot here. Like, throughout all of these articles, the one thing they have in common is that they bring up the fear of the Decepticons. Like, no one wants to have another Chicago, no one wants, what happened to Chicago to happen to anybody else. Like, this is giving me some serious, post 9/11 vibes, in which everyone was like, rallying behind this one event and using it to justify, their arguments, their campaigns. And we see a similar thing happening here, which honestly I kind of appreciate, because it makes the world feel a bit more realistic, even though the movies are pretty unrealistic. But we're still staying in Brazil, and we got an orange Transformer sighting. This one's actually really interesting. Chaos in the cathedral. Outside the cathedral, there was this high-speed chase between the police and two Transformers. When the police managed to get close to these two, both vehicles turned into robots and they started declaring their innocence. Quote unquote, "Stay away," said the smaller vehicle. "We are on your side." "You're surrounded," said the police chief, using his megaphone. "Surrender." However, the two machines ignored the demands of the chief, and they fled without leaving a trace. And a nearby cameraman managed to take a picture of the incident. So in this image, we can see the two Autobots. Now, it's very hard to tell and it's very blurry, but one has orange, yellow, and silver colors, while the other one is a silver with black. Again, I'm sorry, it's very hard to tell, but because of the perspective here, we are actually able to scale the two to know how big they're supposed to be. Now, in the article it was mentioned that the little one said stay back, so it's a big Autobot and a smaller one. And we know they're Autobots because they say they're friendly, they didn't try to hurt anyone. And because of the perspective, scaling here is a bit difficult. But the one on the back, the silver one, looks to be the bigger one. As you can see, he's right next to a small lamppost. He seems to be quite big. He might be a truck like Optimus or even one like Ironhide. I don't think he's a jet because they said, in vehicle modes they were speeding. It could be like a smaller car, but I don't know. It seems way too big to be, something like that. Probably just a truck. And then we have here the one that's closer to the front. Now this one you can see clearly that he's like compared to a small, lamppost. He's like about the same size. So this guy's like Bumblebee Mirage size. Standard, car size. Because of the colors, we can't exactly tell who they are. What we have going on for these guys is the colors. Now they are in Brazil, so we do know for a fact that this is not any of the Autobots we know from our main cast. They have to be new Transformers that we haven't seen before. So we got like a big silver with black Autobot and a smaller orange with yellow and red. I will typically say hot rod, but we know hot rods in England, so that can't be it. This is gonna be a bit of a wild theory, but I think the orange one might be Drift. Now, the orange one was portrayed to be the most peaceful, and it was, the whole, we're not gonna hurt you humans. And Drift typically is kind of like that most of the time. And a lot of the concept art for Drift does depict him as, having an orange look to him, because early on, that was the planned look for Drift. Until it got changed by Michael Bay in the final release of the movie. And he also has like two little, black thingies on the back. It reminds me of like the black swords that Drift has in the movie. So that's just a possibility. As for the silver Autobot, that was really hard. I have no idea. You know how little the silver color narrows it down? The Transformers do love their silver. The red one I could see either being, you know, probably maybe Drift when he first arrived on Earth, or any other orange Autobot that transforms into a small vehicle. The silver one, again, I have no idea, and from what I see here, it's very hard to tell his general shape. He looks kind of Dorito-like, like Starscream, but by that point, I'm kind of just, you know, guessing. Next up, we got audio that comes straight from Cancun, which I think it's in Mexico.
I see a Transformer now in Mexico, and he's out of my building, and he's attacking right now. Please call me. This is Marco, Marathon agent of Mexico.
Okay, so this guy says that he's being attacked by a Transformer, so clearly a Decepticon, and he says his name is Marco, agent of Mexico. Like what type of agent? Are we talking like embassy agent? Are we talking like military officer? This guy like leaves stuff so ridiculously vague. I can't exactly tell what he's supposed to be. And this call doesn't really tell us much aside from the fact that there's a Decepticon in Mexico. But we're not entirely done with Mexico just yet. We then move on to Mexico City, where there has been a sighting of a Transformer. I'm gonna read the important bits of it. Dark days. Robots threatened the Sun Pyramid. Unfortunately, the Sun Pyramid was almost completely destroyed by mechanized beings when the Transformers traveled through the Mexican ruins. In their way to Mexico City, the screams of horrified tourists alerted local authorities, which entered the ruins while military backup was on the way. There hasn't been a shootout just yet, were the words of the captain of the police, who organized the opposition for the extraterrestrial forces. The Transformers remain at large, as if they had a more important battle that they had to arrive to. To this day, this speculation has been verified or refuted. We are fortunate this time, continued the captain, but we cannot depend on good fortune forever. We must end this problem immediately. Now, this one is very interesting, and I think this is the sighting, and this image in particular is the one that has been mentioned the most amongst the Transformers movie community, because it shows what it appears to be size-wise. Now, it's a silver Transformer. It's getting this figure right next to the tree that it's, you know, average, you know, deluxe class, you know, robot standard vehicle size. And the most damning piece of evidence is that it mentions Mexico City, the place where we know for a fact Optimus was last seen by humanity before the events of Age of Extinction. Now, in my Left With video, I basically established the whole timeline of events. That's why I'm saying that you need to watch that video if you're curious. The events of Mexico City happened first, where, you know, Optimus was ambushed by the humans and locked down. And after that, he sent a message to all of the remaining Autobots, you know, to cease all contact with humans. They have been betrayed. Now, because of like the implied nature of, you know, this Transformer having somewhere more important to be, this could probably either happen before or after Mexico City, where, you know, Optimus gets ambushed, the Autobots scatter, then they meet up again in the power plant in America much later on. And I'll get to that part in a bit, because the website actually supports my theory about there being an Autobot last stand, but we'll get to that a little later. So I'm not sure if Sideswipe here is either A, trying to go to Mexico City to back up Optimus, because that's where he was last seen and spotted and where the Autobots received his message from, or if Sideswipe here is running away from, you know, Lockdown and Cemetery Wind. The article says that there were Transformers plural, so meaning the Sideswipe was not the only one here. There were probably a few more like Dino, Mirage, Bumblebee, and Optimus. They were all en route to Mexico City. So this probably happens before the ambush at Mexico City. This is probably one of the last appearances of Sideswipe before he dies. Now granted, I definitely do think this is Sideswipe, and whether he dies shortly after this picture's taken or not doesn't really matter or affect my theory that much. Either Sideswipe survives, makes it to the Autobot last stand and dies later, or Sideswipe dies here and doesn't make it to the Autobot last stand in the power plant, which doesn't exactly affect my theory. Only thing that changes is that there's one Autobot less to fight against Lockdown and the humans.
And now we move to our top story, the Pentagon's ongoing battle to locate and eliminate Transformers.
Now, I want to talk about some of like the little videos that we see here. Now, you guys probably are familiar with some of these videos. You probably saw them on YouTube every once in a while. But I want to briefly talk about these ones before we move on to talking about the remaining sightings. In this little news article, we see that they're just talking about, the Transformers and how they've been spotting all around the globe and the last words of Optimus Prime. You also get the establishment that this happens 3 years after the Battle of Chicago. Keep in mind that Age of Extinction takes place 5 years after Chicago. And if you remember the early articles we talked about, it looks like humanity basically turned into the Autobots immediately after Chicago. There wasn't exactly a time period of peace. Well, maybe there was, but after 3 years we know that the peace ended. So somewhere around the first to second years, humanity just, overwhelmingly, the governments at least, turned against the Autobots, declaring them, alien invaders.
We've had a Transformer sighting. He's been running the ridge tops across the hills through the trees and staying out of the public view mostly. He's been very elusive.
As we hear these reports, the nation is reminded again to be on high alert. For the latest news and updates, remember to check in at transformersaredangerous.com. Thanks for tuning in.
In this map, we see a few more sightings, some happening in Canada, most of them happening in America. But so far, all that you need to know is that the Autobots and the events of Mexico City happen approximately, during the 3-year time gap between Dark of the Moon and Age of Extinction. And as you can see with this trailer, which honestly, most of these are just like Photoshop templates that you can find on the internet to, put a mock of any poster you want. I found that kind of funny. And as you can see, the news reports that we're seeing right now happen shortly after the Battle of Chicago. I place it like a month or a year after, which again sparked a lot of anti-Transformer sentiment. This is what I think caused the Autobots and the humans to basically split up. Next up, we got an aftermath in Miami. So in this article, it basically tells us that, there's terror by the seas. People are afraid that the Transformers are gonna storm the Miami beaches for some reason. They have basically deployed 24 battalions to secure the seas, just in case of a potential amphibian Decepticon invasion. Again, this is just more fear-mongering, just showing you again that the people are in a panic. Anything can be a Transformer, your mom, your dog, your toaster, your toilet, anything could be dangerous. It's again another article that's just, putting the fear of the machines out there. Next up, we got an audio from Greenville. We're gonna analyze this real quick.
So, I was just in my yard and a Transformer attacked and I don't know what to do. I saw the message to call this number. Someone please help me, please. I need help. There's some type of Autobot or Decepticon or whatever the heck it is. Please help me, please.
Imagine just minding your own business in your backyard, only to see a giant robot murder machine appear out of nowhere. Now, it's very hard to tell if this is supposed to be an Autobot or a Decepticon. Again, the human understandably acts pretty panicked, but the Decepticon hasn't destroyed his house or killed him just yet, so it could be an Autobot just hiding, or even a Decepticon doing the same thing, not wanting to lure attention to himself. We then move to Washington DC. This one's actually more interesting. Monumental tension. Now this article doesn't really have any, sightings or anything that says that a Transformer is really planning to destroy the obelisk or that one was spotted around there. This is basically the article putting more fear-mongering out there, saying, oh my god, they attacked Chicago, what's next? The Statue of Liberty? The obelisk at Washington DC, the Great Canyon? Basically just, putting in the scare for the people out there, being like, anything could be next, we should be prepared. But the interesting part is what's said by the end of the article. It says that both houses of Congress have ratified the immediate exile of all Transformers, and that the president, thanks Obama, is expected to sign the new policy into law later today. Americans will not tolerate another invasion on our hallowed soil. Unfortunately, we don't really have an exact year or a time gap as to how far away this is from the Battle of Chicago, but much like the Australian article that I covered at the beginning of this video, it looks like the whole humans turning against the Autobots thing happened very early on to the Battle of Chicago, because we know by year 3 that law was already established. This seems to be pretty early on, maybe around the first or second year, which honestly I kinda feel bad for Optimus and his Autobots. Like, they just got done killing their sworn enemies, basically dooming their own planet to save Earth, and immediately thereafter, not even a year passes by and the humans just betray them outright. It's honestly kinda sad. Okay, now we got another aftermath in Philadelphia. Here we get an article that's called United We Fall. It's basically, again, like going over the whole, oh, Chicago was a tragedy and we can't let it happen again, so we must use this pain to become stronger and to basically kill all Autobots or Decepticons on site. There are no good robots or bad robots, it's just us and them. Now, what's interesting is the ending paragraph of this. It says there are no longer good robots or bad robots, just enemy combatants. This is our new world order. God bless America, God save America. Now, that first line is exactly what Attinger says at the end of Age of Extinction.
There are no good aliens or bad aliens, Jaeger. It's just us and them. And you chose them.
And the whole thing about the New World Order is what Lennox says in The Last Night, and I find that extremely interesting.
It's a new world order now, and these guys are calling the shots.
Because we do know that the military, for the most part, seem to actually like the Autobots, like they know they're on their side. So you'll figure, like, if the military, backing the Autobots, the, members of Congress, the president, and all such political figures will probably be a bit more lenient to, say, okay, the Decepticons are bad, Autobots are good. But what if, and this is just a possibility, and I might make this into a video someday, what if pretenders have infiltrated the government and they are the new world order that caused the Autobots and the human relationships to break down? I know it sounds crazy because, the humans are hunting down both Autobots and Decepticons, but think about this. The humans have all the reasons to believe that the Autobots are on their side. The military does so. The problem is that humans by default are very mistrustful creatures. They have a habit of, going into a panic when there's fear. They make rash decisions. So using the fear of Chicago, that traumatic event that killed millions, and weaponizing it against the Autobots seems something a pretender that, let's say, replaced Barack Obama could probably exploit to justify their campaign to hunt down all Transformers regardless of factions. Which I know it sounds crazy, but by the point of The Last Night, Decepticons, get put in prison and not exactly killed. So pretenders could have probably infiltrated the government and slowly made things a little better for the Decepticons, while in the meantime just, giving that middle finger to the Autobots, alas, screw you for, losing us Cybertron and losing us the war in Chicago. It's just food for thought and something that could probably justify this whole new world order business that gets referenced a lot throughout the movies. And now we have another audio from Columbus. Let's see what this says.
Hello. Oh my god. Okay. There was this red Jeep and it had this symbol on it and I don't know if that's a Transformer or not. There was a new driver and I'm really scared. Someone please. I think I just saw a Transformer.
Now this one is interesting and I think I know who this one is. Now when she said Jeep, I immediately thought of G1 Hound. Maybe this is Hound's original disguise. But if you listen to that closely, she says there was this red Jeep. A red Jeep. Now, where have we seen a red Jeep before in the movies? That's right, Dark of the Moon. During the filming of Dark of the Moon, a red Jeep was spotted on set. Now, this of course was, thought out that it will be an Autobot that we'll probably see appear in the movie. And it got the attention of the fandom back then, because we were all speculating it had the Autobot insignia there. It really looked like it was going to be part of the movie, but at the end it turned out that it was just, part of Michael Bay's misinformation campaign, or just a random car that was spotted on set. So I feel like this call is actually paying homage to that event, to that little moment where the fandom was like, oh, that's Rollbar, he's gonna be in the movie, and it didn't turn out to be true. Because, I mean, while there were no real plans to add Rollbar into the movie and this was all fake, I wouldn't put it past Michael Bay or the marketing campaign to, give a little, wink wink nudge nudge to that. Be like, hey guys, remember that red Jeep? So I definitely do think that the red Jeep is in fact an Autobot and that is a Rollbar. You're welcome to disagree with me, but I think this one makes sense and it has some, previous appearance or connection to the movies in some way, even though it could just be a cameo or an Easter egg. Our next call comes straight from Cleveland.
Yes, I'd like to report a Decepticon in the shape of an RX-7 in Cleveland, Ohio. Lots of suspicious activity with that particular vehicle. It even has the Decepticon emblem on it as well. Thank you. If you need to contact me, you can call me back at this number. Thanks.
This is the type of code that I like. Specific details tells us which faction the character's from, and it even gave us the type of vehicle. So this is a Decepticon and an RX-7. Now, which one specifically it is, I don't know. It could be any of these RX-7s that I just googled. And what's kind of upsetting is that we don't have the color of the car. The color of the car would help a lot with identifying this particular Decepticon. But since this is a Decepticon, I think it could probably be a Stunticon. Which one? I have no idea, because we don't know the colors. But if it's gonna be a Decepticon, I feel like it's either gonna be a Stunticon or someone else, which unfortunately I can't exactly think of anyone at the moment that will fit this type of vehicle. Feel free to let me know your thoughts on who could this be in the comments down below. Who is our mysterious RX-7 Decepticon? Now, I won't be covering all the audio you guys see here, because some of these audios are basically just, hey, there's a Transformer out there, get them, you know? It's not really useful and not really worth dissecting. I like to cover the more juicy ones, you know? Our next audio comes from Augusta.
I have reported a Chevy Camaro that's green and black, and I believe it is a Decepticon. What should I do?
Now, much like the previous one, I love this one because we know the car, and now we know the colors, and we think we know the faction. So it's a Camaro, much like Bumblebee, and it's green and black. Now, Camaro is very associated with Bumblebee. If you're a Camaro, you're most likely Bumblebee or a type of Bumblebee. So when I think Decepticon that looks like Bumblebee has the same vehicle mode, there's only one character that comes to mind. My boy Wasp. Wasp is in the movies. Now again, we don't have to name, you know, we don't have to mention Decepticon Wasp was spotted in Augusta or anything like that. But us just knowing the vehicle mode and knowing the colors is more than enough. Those are the colors of animated Wasp, and you know, Wasp was basically a recolor of Bumblebee in animated, and this is just a recolor of Bumblebee's Camaro in the movie. So it's Wasp. It's Wasp. It's Wasp. It just is Wasp. You can't tell me otherwise. Next up, we got a sighting in New York. So I'm just gonna read what this article says. Chrysler's last stand. Attacked thwarted by iconic skyscraper. The Autobot known only as Flash was on the run in Manhattan's Has site yesterday. His motives were unclear, but his menace was unmistakable. Police gave chase past Grand Central Station until the infamous Transformer ducked behind the Chrysler building and then sped off, but not before being photographed by several frightened witnesses. "Yeah, I saw the metal freak," commented one bystander. "Flit him off something fierce," another native New Yorker concluded. "We watched what happened to our brothers in Chicago, and we're not standing for it here." Now, this is the first time we actually have a name, and we actually have a clear idea as to who this Transformer is. Now, if you don't know who Flash is, then that means you haven't watched my old Autobots from 2007 video. In that video, I covered all the characters from the Transformers 2007 days, from the movies, the games, toys, extra time material. Now, Flash is an Autobot that's part of the Transformers Rise of the Chevy Autobots online game, an old Flash game where, you know, it basically was a promotional game for, you know, the Chevy brand, in which a bunch of Autobots transform as Chevy vehicles must help Bumblebee fight the Decepticons. Now, before I go on, you will actually be shocked how many 2007 Autobots are still alive by the point of age of extinction. Really, go check that video out. You guys are gonna be so surprised how many Autobots survived the first 4 movies. By the point of the last night, we don't know if Flash is still alive or not. Supposedly he still is, and Flash is just one of those many Autobots. He was spotted in New York and managed to get away.
Live to fight another day, boys. Live to fight another day.
Next up, we got another sighting in St. Louis, and I'm gonna read what this says. Arch enemy. Although Missouri's nickname is the Show Me State, residents were displeased at what they saw loitering underneath the iconic St. Louis Arch yesterday. It was a dreaded Transformer. Judging from the scale of the above photo, the monstrosity stood approximately 150 feet tall, just under a quarter of the arch's venerable height. But with the monument stands as a symbol of human exploration and innovation, the Transformers represent a threat to all those early achievements. Why are they here? Asked the mayor of St. Louis, and why now? We see what they have to offer, and we're not buying it. Leave our arch alone. leave our people alone. Just leave. Now this sighting is actually useful because it gives us the height of the Transformer. It's said to be approximately 150 feet tall. Now here, the St. Louis Gateway Arch is 630 feet. And 150 feet is usually the height of your average wind tower. That's approximately almost the size of a 7th floor apartment. So needless to say, it's pretty big, it's gigantic. This guy will tower over Optimus Prime, so he's a huge Transformer. Now unfortunately, because of the image, you can't exactly get a good, look at who this guy is. He's definitely a tall Transformer, a big one for that matter. Just to give you an idea, Devastator is 100 feet tall. So we're talking about a Transformer here who's actually, 50 feet taller than him. So this might be a combiner sized Transformer, someone pretty big. I'm not saying it's a combiner, I feel like the article would mention if it was, but it's definitely a character that stands on the larger side. Could be someone like Scorponok, Omega Supreme, hell, maybe even Ultra Magnus, considering how big he's supposed to be. Honestly, we don't have any clear indication, so leave me your best guess in the comments down below. Next up, we got an audio from Tulsa.
Hi, I just saw some car drive by, and then it just got up and walked off, and I didn't know what to do, so I found this phone number, but it just leaped over a few other cars, and then it turned back into a car.
Unfortunately, we don't know much about this character, except that it's a car. It transformed, smashed a bunch of other cars, and left. Which, I might add, that's the ultimate Chad move. Transforms, destroy cars, refuses to elaborate, and just leaves. But we do know that this is a Decepticon, because he's, destroying human property. So again, probably a Stunticon, just probably. Now we have another sighting in Keystone. Now I won't read the article this time because it's pretty self-explanatory. There were tourists, in Mount Rushmore, then they spotted a Transformer, then the Transformers got away. And in here we can see Bumblebee, who's, trying to get away from the scene. Now keep this part in mind because it's going to be very important in a little bit. Our next sighting is on Beaver Creek, which is relatively close to Mount Rushmore.
Hello, I'd like to report a Transformer in Oregon, Beaver Creek, yellow Camaro.
We get another audio that basically states that a yellow Camaro has been spotted around the area. So just keep in mind that Bumblebee is circling around this area. There are a lot of Autobot sightings around this area at the moment. Keep that in mind because it's going to become very relevant in a minute. Not too far from that place in San Diego, we actually have a little news article. Ship out, developing story. Special Ops have set their sights on the Autobot known as Ratchet. The Transformer was seen maneuvering stealthily through a Southern California shipyard just a minute away from San Diego. Reports of the sighting continue to emerge, but the details remain classified. More updates to follow. And we can see that he's like in this shipyard, next to where all these ships are. He's basically hiding, which just so happens to be the same place we see him die in Age of Extinction. There's something very sad about seeing this picture, knowing that this is probably the last picture that was taken of Ratchet before he ended up meeting his tragic end. We got 2 sightings of Bumblebee and 1 sighting of Ratchet. My guess is that Bumblebee was trying to reach for Ratchet. He was trying to, go to him and save him, or rendezvous with him. Now, we know for a fact that Bumblebee is not traveling alone. By this point, he has, Drift, Crossers, and Hound with him. And this goes back to my Leadfoot theory, how Bumblebee got Leadfoot and probably a bunch of other Autobots killed. In that video, I basically said that after the events of Mexico City and Optimus Prime, went missing, the Autobots didn't know where he was, the Autobots went into hiding. They met up at the Satsop nuclear power plant, which just so happens to be the same place the production from Age of Extinction was filming at one point. Now, we never saw the power plant appear in the movie, and that's because, they kind of, you know, went filming there for a bit, but then they changed their minds and were like, yeah, we're not gonna use this part anymore. So instead, the only footage that we got from that set location was the death of Leadfoot. In my video, I basically analyzed that scene again and the surrounding of the power plant and came to the conclusion that they used that scene, that location, to film the death of Leadfoot, meaning that Leadfoot met his end near the power plant. Now, it is my belief that shortly after Optimus went missing, all the Autobots rendezvous at the power plant, all the ones that are alive and then went missing, like Sideswipe and a few others, where they were basically planning out what they were gonna do and where was Optimus Prime, because by this point they don't know that, they're all for the most part leaderless. Now, it is my belief that during this, Bumblebee was spotted, and it's my belief that during the rendezvous, Bumblebee was spotted. He was spotted on Keystone and then he was spotted in Beaver Creek, making his way to the power plant, the rendezvous point. Because the power plant is isolated, it's abandoned, and that's the perfect place for Autobots to hide. And the Beaver Creek audio is very important because that audio establishes that the yellow Camaro, it's well known across the world. Like, people, it's public knowledge that Bumblebee transforms as a yellow Camaro. It's public knowledge that people know how Optimus Prime and Bumblebee look like. That's how, you know, those teenagers in Spain were able to create replicas of those two to prank people. So Bumblebee has popularity, you know, he's recognizable. In Dark of the Moon this was the case, and in Age of Extinction and this website it just gets reinforced. So using that as our baseline, I think it was these reports right here that tipped Cemetery Wind to Bumblebee's location. They were able to track him to the Sapsum nuclear power plant. And in case you're curious, I searched in Google Maps and look where the Sapsum nuclear power plant is. Very near the places where Bumblebee were spotted and where Ratchet will later die. Coincidence? I think not.
The prophecy is true.
So what I'm thinking happened here, all of the Autobots met up at the power plant. Lockdown and Cemetery Wind tracked them. They were ambushed by Cemetery Wind. Lockdown, using his sniper rifle, managed to pick them off, you know, probably got a few Autobot kills, and the Autobots were forced to scatter. With all the Autobots meeting in one place, this will explain how Brains got captured. He wasn't just randomly found someplace else, he was carefully tracked using these calls, and ahead of time, maybe Cemetery Wind got in contact with KSI, and KSI was like, hey, can we have the little one? I think he could be useful for our experiments. And you know, Cemetery Wind with this knowledge set out, captured Brains, sent the Autobots running, and this tragic event, this whole thing of Bumblebee's Camaro being recognizable, forced Bumblebee to change to his evasion mode state that we see at the beginning of Age of Extinction. While the Autobots were scattering in all directions, Cemetery Wind was able to, you know, put trackers on Ratchet, which is what allowed them to find Ratchet. And also, the place where Ratchet was hiding was pretty good, actually. Like, aside from, you know, Ratchet being spotted probably a little earlier by the newspapers, there was no way that Cemetery Wind would just be able to, you know, deduce that Ratchet was just hiding in this particular boat, in this particular area, unless they put a tracker on him. This event probably resulted in the death of Sideswipe if he hadn't died, you know, earlier in Mexico City, and the death of Leadfoot, which he stayed behind to give the other Autobots enough time to escape. If you guys want to know more about that narrative and that theory, I recommend checking out the Leadfoot theory video. It's one of my best theory videos. I think it makes sense, and if anything, I think like the website right here, the Transformers and Dangerous website, just justifies it even more. It gives it more validity. It makes it even more true. So, you know, I was right, guys. I was right. I was called a madman, but I get proven right. You know, it's very difficult being this right, guys. It's so hard. But yeah, that was the Autobot Last Stand. That's how Cemetery Wind managed to find Ratchet and Leadfoot, and why we see Bumblebee in his Camaro. Yeah, he's still in his Dark of the Moon Camaro. He's not in his Age of Extinction, you know, evasion vehicle. So what the website is telling us adds up. And also, if you take a look at the map, there's an audio and an aftermath right where the power plant should be, or very near it. So, you know, that's even more evidence that there was Transformers activity of some kind in that area. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find the audio and the aftermath, you know, citing for it. But what we have is enough to establish a clear timeline and to identify quite a few Autobots and Decepticons. But from what I'm getting here, it looks like that shortly after the Battle of Chicago, anti-Transformer sentiment was at an all-time high. There was still some debate whether the Autobots are our allies or not. But all that changed when the US Congress passed a new law that basically made the Transformers public enemy #1. forcing them to kinda go into hiding. Then other countries like Australia, England, and Spain follow. It was during this that Cemetery Wind was formed, and somehow they came into contact with Lockdown and joined forces to hunt down the Autobots. Optimus Prime's Autobots, or at least a portion of them, were lured to Mexico City, where they were attacked, sized, and then sent running, like we see in the Mexico City newspaper, which shows what supposedly is Sideswipe. After that, Autobots and Decepticons began being reported all around the globe, and the Autobots decide to set up a rendezvous point where they can meet up and discuss the next course of actions, which turns out being the Sapstone nuclear power plant. Bumblebee makes his way there along with other Autobots, and on the way, his iconic yellow Camaro is spotted and reported, which leads to Cemetery Wind and Lockdown to raid the facility, forcing the Autobots to have one final last stand together as a group. Our Dark of the Moon cast and even our Age of Extinction cast are present. They put up one final fight against Lockdown, but because of Lockdown's, sniper fire, and they don't have any good counters against that, they're basically forced to retreat and scatter in all different directions. Leftfoot stays behind to buy the Autobots time to escape, tries to reason with the humans, gets killed, Brains gets captured, while Wheelie, Topspin, Mirage, and a few other Autobots manage to get away, leaving Bumblebee, Drift, Hound, and Crossers as the only Autobots to still remain together. The other Autobots blame Bumblebee for being the one to accidentally lure Cemetery Wind to them and causing the death of their friends, which justifies their animosity towards them from Age of Extinction. And an angry and shamed Bumblebee decides to finally ditch his yellow Camaro and skins a new older vehicle in order to better evade the humans. Which eventually leads us to the events of Age of Extinction, where Optimus Prime gets found by Kay Yeager, and then the reuniting Autobots manage to rendezvous once again and find out that Ratchet and Leftfoot have been killed, leaving Optimus very angry towards humanity and leaving him with the realization that humanity doesn't want them, despite Optimus Prime's pleas and assurances that he's there to defend them. He still holds on to hope that this was all a big misunderstanding, that the Autobots are still needed and that humanity still wants them, leaving his hopes to be shattered when he finally confronts Joshua at the KSI headquarters, and he drops the truth that Optimus Prime always knew, that the world doesn't need them anymore. And damn, I'm good at creating a narrative. Hasbro should hire me instead of Michael Bay. But yeah guys, that's the full-on Transformers timeline between Dark of the Moon leading to Age of Extinction and all the Transformers that we know for a fact are part of the universe. Now granted, unfortunately most of these ones don't have names and we can only, speculate as to who they are. But I think it's honestly pretty cool that this website basically, gives us an idea of how, the timeline looked like leading up to Age of Extinction and how the Transformers were interacting with the world after Dark of the Moon. Again, I wasn't able to identify every single Transformer in this video, in this website, so if you have any ideas as to who some of these mysterious fellas could be, let me know in the comments down below because I'd love to hear it. Also, do you think that this basically, validates my Leftfoot theory even more? I personally think it does, because now we have stronger evidence that Bumblebee, Ratchet, and the Autobots were spotted around, the power plant that's located in Oregon. So it all adds up. The whole events surrounding Mexico City are still a bit blurry, but for the most part, we're able to paint the picture as to what happened and who was involved. I might make some more videos talking about the website and the Transformers marketing campaigns, because Age of Extinction wasn't the only Transformers movie to have one. The first movie and Revenge of the Fallen also had their own marketing campaigns, or ARGs for short, that also revealed Autobots and Decepticons that did not appear in the movie. So if that's something that interests you guys, let me know in the comments down below. I'm more than happy to talk about them, because this is something that honestly fascinates me, and not a lot of people in the English side of the community have talked about them for whatever reason. But yeah guys, that's it for this video. Hopefully you'll enjoy. As always, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Stay safe guys. Anyways guys, before we go, shout out to our amazing patrons: Xavier the God, Stitch Productions, Scrub Lordo, Allspark Studios, Epic Nin, Low Racer, Transformers Gears and Brawn, that's quite a long name, Optination Reviews, Joshua, and our newest patron Jane. And an even bigger shout out to our even bigger patrons, Jordan the Great, and our newest top tier patron named K-High, or Namek High, how would you pronounce that? And X-Nora23, who donated a amount of money. By donating to my Patreon, you get quite a few rewards. get a shout out to you and your YouTube channel in the description down below. You get to collab with me in some of my videos if you so choose to. You can request some artwork from me, get exclusive early access to some of my videos, and some other projects I'm currently working on in the background. And I'm constantly updating the Patron with brand new rewards and new content for you guys to enjoy. And a bunch of other stuff I plan to make public in the future. Be sure to check out my Patron's YouTube channels, they're all gonna be in the description down below. They also do some really cool content over there that is surely worth your time. Keep in mind this is 100% optional since freedom is the right of all sentient beings. Thank you guys so much for donating, it's much appreciated. And I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Stay safe guys.